I'm your host, Kane, and I'm joined by my co-host.
Caden.
In this episode, we are joined by special guest Ziegenfuss, Everett Ziegenfuss, also known as Ziggy. He has his own podcast, Apple Picking and Cherry Picking. Apple Picking, they discuss many serious topics. On Cherry Picking, they discuss some sports and stuff, so definitely recommend it. We'll leave all the links and stuff in the bio of this episode, whether on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So, in this episode, we had to talk to Ziggy about his trip to China. From Shanghai to Beijing, he had some interesting stories to tell, and even when he got back, he had some tales to tell. So, yeah, we hope you enjoy this episode, and if you do, make sure to follow Ziggy and us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts, of course. Okay, bye. Enjoy. Hello, everybody. Today we are joined by Ziegenfuss. He's going to be telling us an interesting story. Me and Caden are going to ask him a few questions about it, maybe, and just hear about this great story he has for us. So take it away. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, Ziegenfuss is my last name. I mean, that's my Discord name. You guys can just call me Ziggy.
I wasn't sure if you wanted me to call you by your first name or your second name. So.
No problem. Call me Ziggy. You guys, hit me up. We got Kian on my podcast. One of the few I'm a part of, Apple Picking, really told us some great stuff about how the Black Lives Matter
movement. Go check it out. We'll
manifesting
put you in the bio or whatever.
Absolutely. Thank you much. But I'm not here to talk about that today. I'm here to talk about my a portion of my trip to China. So let's start at the beginning, because you said in pre-show that if there's a little bit of Marvel backstory, that I should be including that. So we'll start all the way back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, before I even left. This was 2 years ago, almost to the month. I was just out of college. I finished all of my finals for college in one day, which for that means, all of your final exams, instead of having them spread out, over the course of 2 weeks, I was given the opportunity to go to China, and I talked to all of my professors. I said, let's just get them all done in one day so I don't miss my flight. So we made it happen. I woke up at 8 a.m., one Tuesday morning or whatever, and from 8 a.m. to like 9 p.m., I took about 6 exams, and, I was absolutely destroyed mentally, as you could imagine. I couldn't, the burnout was so real, right? The next morning at 6 a.m., I had to take a train from my university in a place called Philadelphia to my hometown in a place called Pittsburgh, which is about an 8-hour train ride. So that wasn't fun, right? So I took the train ride, and if I fell asleep on the train, I'd risk missing my stop. And if I miss my stop in Pittsburgh, it's another 2 hours to the next stop in Cleveland, which is very bad, because I'd miss my flight. So I could only sleep for a couple hours. So I was sleep deprived. I had to, get to Pittsburgh. I had to pack everything up because I was going to China for almost a month, and packed everything up, get to the airport the next morning. So I had a little bit of sleep, but not a lot of sleep. I was still absolutely dead, and I felt like I was coming down with some sort of sickness, and I was miserable, to say the least. The reason I was going to China, I probably should have prefaced with this, was a lucky opportunity. All right, my mom works in aerospace, just does some stuff with planes. I don't really know the whole details of it. That part is not really relevant. But what happened was, she had to go to China with some coworkers for some business stuff, to say the least. And one of her coworkers was unable to go to China last minute. Right? They say, I can't make it. I have something or another, and I just can't go. Right? And the company's like, well, we already have the everything paid for, right? We can't just let it go to waste. So if anybody else that's going on the trip wants to have a friend join them for the trip, speak up now. And like 20 minutes later, my mom hits me up like during one of my classes in the end of April of 2018 and says, Everett, which is what she calls me, which is my legal name, do you want to go to China? I said, absolutely. When are we leaving? She said, next week. And I said, oh shit, I have to get all my finals together in the next week. So I did that, like I just said. We get to Pittsburgh after my train ride, and I guess what I didn't know is that the one thing that wasn't paid for was my plane ticket, right? And the trip from the U.S. to China is about a 16-hour, 17-hour plane ride, so it's not short, right, to say the least. And unbeknownst to me, my mom's company had bought first class for her. Also unbeknownst to me, I got stuck basically in the cargo bay. And I was riding with like all like the dogs and stuff. No, I wasn't, but I was stuck with with fat people next to me, essentially is what I was stuck with. So she got a direct flight from Pittsburgh to wherever the hell we're going. Shanghai, China is where we're going. And me, on the other hand, I had to go from Pittsburgh to Toronto to China, which is a weird way to get to China. I thought you would just go west. No, but you go over the North Pole. You go over the Arctic Circle. I thought that was pretty cool. Saw a lot of snow. But what happened is when I get to Toronto, I'm feeling miserable. Right, first things first, actually, in Pittsburgh, I almost missed my flight, period. I was in the airport. I was feeling so bad. I was so sleep deprived. I was a tidbit hungover. And I was sitting in the terminal, and I fell asleep. I fell asleep in the terminal, and one of the flight attendants had to come run out of the plane and wake me up and say, sir, are you going to Toronto? And I said, I think so. And she said, well, we're leaving right now. You need to be on this plane. So she had to like drag my sleeping body onto the plane, essentially. So I almost missed that flight. I get to Toronto, and I'm still feeling miserable. I go buy like a slice of pizza for $37 or whatever, and it's nice. That's fine. I get on the plane and I get to China. And it was a smooth 15-hour trip. I still felt like crap, but it's feeling a little better. Get to China, and I'm waiting at the carousel, the baggage carousel for my bags. And what do I see? I don't see my bag, right? And I'm waiting there without any of the bags I packed. All right, so I'm there for about 3 hours. And my mom and I were on completely different flights, right? She flew first class, but it was on a different flight. All right, so I flew Air Canada to China, arrived in China 3 hours before she did, didn't have my bags. I had the shoes on my feet, the clothes on my body, and like 2 pairs of boxers in my backpack. That's it. And I would needed to survive like a whole month there without anything and without any clothes whatsoever, this is not a good idea. I would tell you that much. My mom, got there 3 hours later. But the other thing is that, I was in fucking China. How am I supposed to find my way to like baggage claim? How am I supposed to find my way around when nothing is in the language that I can figure out whatsoever? I mean, it's all characters and stuff. So I had to find like the only white person there and have them direct me to, where the Air Canada people were. And I had to file this whole claim, and they said, you know what? Yeah, usually your bag will show up in a few days. Right. Fast forward. This is just a spoiler. I didn't get my bag until 2 months later. Not until I got back to Pittsburgh, and I was about to go back to university. My bag, it just showed up on my doorstep of my family's house. That was ridiculous.
I know. How is that possible? Like,
I don't know.
like
They wanted
maybe
me
2 weeks or something, but like
no. So I was in Shanghai for a couple weeks, and I was calling them every day. I was saying, hey, any update? And every day they wanted me to remember what was in my bag. They said, okay, what was in the bag? I'm like, clothes. There's some other stuff in the bag, and they said, okay, we need to know just in case we come across a similar looking bag, we can identify what's inside of it based on, what's inside of it. I'm like, well, I mean, other than the fact that it says my name on the suitcase, and if there's another Everett Ziegenfuss in the world, which I promise you there probably is not, if there's another one and he happens to have the same bag as me, well, shit. That's really unlucky. But it seems to me like you think you just lost the bag. Somehow, between flight from it was one layover flight. That's all it was. One layover flight, I lost both of my bags. Okay, I guess it makes sense. So they asked me, okay, what did you have in your bag? I'm like, okay, well, I had some shirts. What brand was the shirts? Well, I think one was Adidas. How much did it retail for? It was like $20. Do you have the receipt? Why would I have the receipt?
Well, they want a receipt for a pair of shorts to make sure you didn't steal them and put
I'm
them in your
in,
suitcase to go to
I
China.
am, lady, yeah, Air Canada lady, I'm in China without my bag. Do you think I brought the receipts for purchases I made 4 years ago? Because I just said, you know, what if they lose my bag, I really want to prove to them that I bought this Adidas shirt for $15. And I can prove it to them.
All the receipts I've ever bought.
I know, in case you ever lose your bag. And they asked everything. I'm like, okay, well, at this point, I got to start making things up because I'm only remembering like 3 shirts and 2 pairs of shoes, and that does not fill a big suitcase. So I just started saying, yeah, there was probably like green pair of tennis shoes and a couple more shirts. And oh my God, there was like a diamond ring now. But I guess what they do is they use that for insurance purposes, where they ask you, you know, what's in the luggage, and you tell them what's in the luggage, and they have like this whole ledger. Right, it's kind of like you're donating at a charity shop. They have this whole ledger of how much things cost. Right, okay, if it's a Nike shirt, all Nike shirts are going to cost $20. All right, if it's just green tennis shoes, well, if it's green tennis shoes and there's no brand, then green tennis shoes cost $3. So they do all that, and then, you know, if they can't find your suitcase, they'll say, yeah, okay, here's $300 to make up for everything you lost. They didn't do that because, like I said, I returned from China still without my bag, and you know, 2 months later or whatever, it just shows up on my doorstep. Nothing. Everything's in there. Everything smells like cold, musty suitcase, but you know, that's that. Anyway, so I get to Shanghai. I'm feeling terrible, right? I didn't buy a SIM card because I forgot that China. I remember I had to get to China on short notice. I forgot that they had like the whole ban on the internet. Right? There's no Google, no nothing. Right? So my phone didn't work in China. So I couldn't like get in contact with my mom or anything. All of my chargers, stupidly, were in my suitcase, not in like my carry-on, which was dumb. I was like, oh, you know, they have chargers on the airplane. I don't need chargers on my person. Yeah, famous last words, right? So I didn't have a SIM card, so I couldn't get in contact with anybody. You know, if you picture a movie where they get off the plane and there's like a million people holding up signs trying to, you know, hey, you know, Mr. Johnson, your car is over here. There was probably 2,000 people. It was like a parade. It was like when you get off the plane and you go into the terminal and you go out of like the baggage area, baggage claims, you walk down this hallway and there are thousands, maybe not thousands, but probably a few hundred people on either side of this hallway just screaming, holding up signs, looking for you. I'm like, well, this is an issue because A, not a lot of them are speaking English. B, not a lot of them have English signs. C, I don't really know if I have a car waiting for me if my mom like ordered an Uber from the airport or whatever, because I have no way to get in contact with her. So I'm kind of stuck in Shanghai with just no money, really, no clothes, a backpack. So essentially I'm homeless, you know, for a couple hours. And out of some stroke of luck, I'm sitting at like a Starbucks or like the Starbucks equivalent in China. And my mom comes around the corner to get her coffee. I'm like, I just knew she'd end up at the Starbucks or whatever. So I reconnect with her. I say, we can't find my bags. We look again. We ask the people again. Nothing. She says, all right, well, shit. We're in Shanghai. There's like a big mall, you know, close to the hotel. I think we're at like the Shangri-La or something. And you know, you can go do that. Go spend your first 2 days getting clothes. So I mean, the thing that pissed me off the most was that, you know, I go from the hotel and I wake up, but beautiful. I had more fruits there than I've ever had in my life. It was like they had this buffet spread of like every culture in the world. It was nuts. It was like they had like 1,000. No, I say keep it 1,000, but it's never 1,000. It was like 2 dozen. It's like 2 dozen kiosks of different countries with different foods for breakfast and lunch and dinner. It was super sick. Um, but I would eat breakfast and then I spend the first few hours of my day before I went and like looked and saw things and toured the city. I would go to like the mall and go to like H&M and just buy some cheap clothes, because I'm like, hey, you know, I'm probably gonna get my bag in a couple days. I only need like 2 days worth of clothes. That's it. Not a big deal, right? But then my bag wouldn't show up for 2 more days. And I had to go back again, saying, you know what, it'll probably show up in a couple more days. You know, I'll just get a couple more days of clothes. So it turned out for like the first week, I was always going to the mall every morning to get like cheap clothes, thinking that my bag would come. And then I got the idea like maybe it's actually not coming. And I actually had to get more clothes. I had to get a suitcase, and it was a whole nightmare. But that's Shanghai. Shanghai was beautiful. It was a fantastic city. I had a lot of people take pictures with me that I didn't know, which was very kind of odd. When you're waiting in line to go up to something or you're getting food, I was getting a smoothie at one of the towers there, the Pearl Tower, and I was just getting a smoothie. First of all, it was a banging smoothie. If you ever go to the Pearl Tower in Shanghai, there's a smoothie stand there that has delightful smoothies. But this one person taps me on the shoulder, and she doesn't speak English. She just holds her hands up. If the video was on, I could show you, but kind of like she's taking a picture with her hands, right? And I didn't know if she wanted. Do you want a picture of the smoothie guy? Like, what's going on? And she pointed at me like, I want a picture with you. And I don't know why. Do I look like a famous person? No, I look like your old generic white dude, right? I don't look like anything special. I was wearing cheap clothes because that's all I had at the time. I had a pair of Reebok Classics on my feet, which I bought at a sports shop for like, $15, and that was it. And I wasn't wearing anything nice, and she just wanted a picture with me. I'm like, there are plenty of other white people around here. I'm not the only white person here. Why am I getting selected to be your photo op? I know you see stories. I have black friends that have gone to China. And I have one of them that actually lives in China. He actually speaks fluent Chinese, and he sends me videos all the time of him, speaking Chinese, like, going into a shop and people asking to take pictures of him because he's like this oddity, right? Because you don't really have a lot of black people in China. He's like this oddity, and they're like, oh my gosh, like look at you, wow, it's crazy. I don't know if you ever seen the video of there were two Asian ladies in China or Japan, I'm not sure where, and they're taking a picture with somebody who had like an Iron Man mask on, right?
Oh yes.
Right,
Oh.
and they take the picture, and then right before the picture takes, he takes the mask off, and it's just a black dude. And they freak out, and
Yeah.
So imagine that, but like all the time for my buddy. But then like they take pictures with him because he's supposedly an oddity, right, out there. But then he starts speaking. He thanks them and asks them how they're doing in Chinese back, and like fluent Chinese, and they are freak the hell out. But anyway, I don't speak Chinese. My extended Chinese is like ni hao, and which means hello. If I'm just sorry, I don't want to impress you or anything, but it means hello, and xie xie, which means thank you. That's
Yeah,
it.
you sure you're not fluent? 'Cause, I got a
I'm
bit confused there. It sounds pretty fluent.
Yeah, no.
I could be fluent. Actually, I said xie xie, and my watch just went off because I thought I said hey Bixby. So I might be fluent in something, but it's not Chinese. Anyway, she has to take a picture with me, and this wasn't a one-time thing. There was probably 6 or 7 times over the trip where I was singled out, which is cool. I mean, I'm a beautiful individual. I have a face for radio. I know those are contradictory statements, but I don't know. It is what it is. I smiled. If it ever shows up, in the future, sure. I also know what worried me later is that what my mom was saying, which I didn't know, is that if you're ever in China, and this goes out to everybody that's listening, if you're ever in China and an old lady falls down in the middle of the street, and she's about to get hit by a car, what would you do? You'd probably go help her up. You'd probably go give her a hand. In China, you can't do that at all.
Wait, what? Why not?
Because you'll get sued, especially if you're an American or I mean, I guess somebody from the Isles. If you're a white person, right? because a lot of those times it's for insurance fraud. And if somebody falls down and you grab their arm to help them up, and then they start screaming and they're like, "Oh my God, you broke my arm! You broke my arm!" because you grabbed their arm. And there's CCTV everywhere in China, and they check the tape and they see that you grabbed her arm, and then they see that she was then screaming in pain. They're not going to believe, the authorities aren't going to believe the American. They're going to believe the native Chinese individual. So if that Chinese person presses charges on the American, right, just for an example, that American is probably going to be at fault, and he has no real defense. So it's a big thing. I was told multiple times by my mom and by like our coworkers, by everywhere I went for like business dinners, that if somebody falls or if there's a motorcycle accident or anything, just don't help them up. Which I'm like, that's just the weirdest thing for me to think about. Just not being a good person, but I guess that's just the way it is. It's kind of sad.
When you said that, I thought it was gonna be like something where it's like, yeah, if you help them up or something, they'll try like it's some sort of scam or something like that. That's the reason what I thought, and it is kind of like that actually. It's a scam.
It's a scam. Doesn't even cut it. Scam is like somebody trying to make you buy something that you don't want to buy. But this kind of scam is fraud, and it's stealing a lot of your money. So, I mean, I guess it is a scam by the definition, but I call it something whatever is worse than scam. I can't even think of that. Anyway, another thing before I get to Beijing and the Great Wall that we were taken in Shanghai, and I'll tell you, Shanghai, Beijing, no matter where you go, it is dangerous as shit to drive. I could never imagine in my life driving there, because you have your 4-lane highway, parkway, motorway, whatever you call it. You know what I'm talking about. And now it says by the way the lines are on the road, it's 4 lanes or 6 lanes or whatever. However, what the drivers out there consider as, it's 4 lanes, that must mean that there's 10 lanes. And I'm not kidding. When you have like the shoulders on the side, which is where people, pull over when they need to piss or when they need to fix a flat tire or whatever. Those are all taken up by lanes, and the lines mean absolutely nothing. Right? The dividing lines between the lanes are completely arbitrary. And you will have like an on-ramp, which is very narrow, have like 3 cars on it, each trying to fight for position. It's ridiculous. I mean, it takes you pretty much like 3 days to get 2 miles, is what it feels like. But what happens, we were in a taxi, and we were just driving, and my guy was swerving in and out of traffic and just being a taxi driver. And he had like this steering wheel cover on his steering wheel, obviously, and he just kind of starts messing with it. I don't know, he just doesn't like the way it feels, or he just doesn't really, he's not really happy with it anymore. So he proceeds to take it off, open his door, and then just put it on the side of the road. And I'm like, my guy, you couldn't have just held that in the car until you find a trash can. It's not, you couldn't just do that. But I look out the window and I see everybody's just throwing trash onto the side of the road. Like it's, littering is normal. But then I come to realize that you're supposed to do that. The government, instructs the people to throw their crap onto the road. Not like the big bags of trash, but I'm saying like, the shit in their car or whatever.
Like cans and shit.
Yeah.
That's mad. Why? Do you know why? Or is it just...
Yeah, I figured out why. Because it creates jobs.
Really? Like little people?
That's
like government jobs?
Oh.
Because it's nuts. What happens is that the what do you call it? Every single block, like city block, has a worker, right, that keeps it clean. Right? And that worker won't have a job if everybody throws their trash away. Yeah, so they tell people to essentially give the people a job, and I guess that involves throwing your shit out the window. I think it's dumb, because I guess Shanghai has a 100%, nearly 100% employment rate. So like almost everybody has a job, but a large portion of those jobs are meaningless. And I don't mean meaningless like, oh, like, a teenager could do them. Like meaningless as in there's no purpose for these jobs. Like, why does
They're just
there need
there
to
to
be,
quit. They're just there for a job,
Yeah.
like for
yeah,
people to do something.
every single door, like you go to a museum or you go to like a tower or something, some tourist thing, and every door is manned by like 2 or 3 people.
Yeah, but then I wonder, is that little thing a good thing or a bad thing? Because there is so many people in China.
Well,
You
that's the
wonder
thing
if
is, yeah.
yeah, it's a mixed thing really, because it could be good to keep people working and have that motivation and responsibility. But then if you take that away, a lot of people could just end up like not being able to get a job at all because it's all taken up. There's so
I mean,
much people in the
I
country.
mean, I've seen uh like what do you call it, documentaries and stuff about how expensive it is to live in China. And it's like you have, it's essentially the size of a large dog cage for like $1,200 equivalent like a month, right?
Like for living.
It's basically like a half of a twin bed and maybe, you know, a dresser for $1,200 a month. So, I mean, you're right. Everybody, you have to work, right? There's no really room for unemployment, but
Hmm.
at the same time, there's no like being unemployed incentivizes you to get better and to learn new skills,
Yeah,
right? If
exactly.
I look at the example that I'm told a lot of, the VCR. You guys know what the VCR is? A VCR is
Yeah.
VCR. Okay, because I've talked. I mean, my little sisters were like, a little over 10, are almost unaware of what a VCR is. But anyway, back in the day, I'm not saying I'm not that old anyway, but back in the day, there used to be a store dedicated to VCR repair, right? So, if your VCR was broken, you would go in and get it fixed. But then, obviously VCRs became DVD players and DVD players, Blu-ray and so forth, and then Netflix came up. But those VCR stores don't exist anymore. So there's people who were trained to be VCR repairmen. Their skills are no longer needed, so they had to learn new skills, right, and do something else to contribute to
Yeah,
society.
that's hard to say because they get bored out of this thing they've been working years on just
But
because it went when it died down. Like,
it is. I mean, it's hard and it sucks. But they go on unemployment for a little bit, right? They get some money,
hmm
to keep, and then they learn a new skill and contribute in another job. But in Shanghai, it's like, you clean this one city block. That's literally all you're gonna do because there's no way to work up vertically and like there's no. It's not part of a company. It's not like, oh, you clean city blocks for 3 years and then you could become like, you can own the city block and then you can own multiple blocks and then
yeah,
you
there's
can
no like hierarchy for
Yeah.
for
which
corporate. It doesn't
place.
really work. I mean, there is, but it doesn't. It's not easy to move up, right? And what skills are you learning? How are you bettering yourself if you're just opening doors for tourists for 10 hours a day, right?
Mm.
It's not like you're a doorman in like a hotel where it's all about courtesy or anything. No, the doors. I'm thinking like the Pearl Tower again. Like there were doors in the tower that were just open. They were just open. Like nobody. They were never closed, right? And it wasn't like these individuals were standing and open, keeping the doors open. No, they had like door stops underneath of them. They were just standing by the doors for no reason. They weren't doing anything. They were just standing there. And it's not like they were
Mm.
security, unless you want like a 5'8", 110-pound individual as your security. No, he's just standing there. So I don't see the point of that. It didn't make sense, but I guess everybody's got a job and it's a little weird. It's a little weird out there, but I imagine they come here and things are even weirder when you throw away your own trash. Or at least you're supposed to do. You're supposed to do that, but as not everybody does that, obviously. Anyway, so Shanghai, that was that. Take a train to Beijing, and Beijing is very very smoggy, obviously, as you can imagine. Is that I didn't see the sun in Beijing. When you think of the sun, you think of a hot, fiery ball of hydrogen in the sky. But in Beijing, it was more like a weird yellowy orange haze that is around sometimes in the day. You couldn't really tell where the light was coming from. It was just kind of diffusing throughout the air because of all the smog. It's kind of sad. I kind of like felt like my lungs were heavy. But I imagine, living there, I guess you would adapt, but it was tough. Anyway,
Hmm.
Beijing aside, I went to some counterfeit, those counterfeit stores where they sell like all those fake goods that fell off trucks, right, and are straight out of the factory. right? Or have one small defect. No, they're just those fake goods. Went to those stores, did some bartering, but nobody wanted to barter with me because I was a white boy who didn't speak Chinese. That's okay. It happens. Saw some other things, was crazy hot, but near the end of my time there, we got the opportunity to go camping on top of the Great Wall. And it was absolutely nuts. It was just, my mom and I and some other tourists that were from Germany or some other places. And I'll tell you what, when you get the opportunity to go camping on the Great Wall, it sounds really cool. It's like, wow, I'm going to be pitching the tent on top of the Great Wall. But then you go through what I went through, and you realize, yes, this was fantastic. And in hindsight, this was such an awesome experience. However, during the thing, there were a lot of weird things that happened. Right? So, you go to the Great Wall, and you have like the pictures that everybody else, when you see pictures of the Great Wall, it's usually on places where there's a lot of tourists, and there's places where it's refurbished, right? Where the flooring is new concrete, and the statues, the towers are rebuilt. So it looks, I guess, realistic to what it was back then. However, they said, you know what, we're gonna take these goons to like the old Great Wall, which was really, really cool. And they, it was, things were falling. You would take a wrong step and you could fall off the edge of a cliff. Essentially, is what it was. I mean, you're walking on very narrow things, and I saw some of the people we were going with who were a touch overweight and a touch old, and were complaining of arthritis during the bus ride there. I was like, I really don't know how they're making it up this thing. I mean, I had very bad knee pain at the time, and I was wearing, my $20 trainers that somehow made it up the Great Wall and back. After hiking miles and miles and miles. But, we're going through there, and up the Great Wall is beautiful, and there's sights and yada, yada, yada. I'm not going to bore you with how beautiful it was. I got pictures of that stuff. But we get to the spot where we're going to camp, right? And what's on the dinner menu? Vienna sausages and spicy ramen and a lot of beer. So, it was nice. Right, that's exactly what you want out of a camping trip to China, is those few things. So, we get on the Great Wall and we are camping, essentially. And I'm not saying I'm a loner, but I like to do my own thing, essentially. Right, and everybody else is having a conversation. I'm like, I just kind of want to go chill and kind of go into a quiet area of the wall. Kind of go explore a little bit, explore some parts that we're not going to see, and just look at what the hell it was. It was like you were overlooking a jungle. It was, very cinematic, right? But I'm like, well, I got to shit, and I go ask the tour. I don't want to say the tour guide, right? But the hiking leader, the guy that worked for the camping company, and I said, where do I go to the bathroom? And he said, wherever you can find a place. I'm like, what do you mean? Just over the edge of the wall or on the wall? And he's like, wherever you can find the place, you can use the bathroom. I'm like, well, this feels hella disrespectful. It's like me going to Stonehenge and taking a shit on, right in front of a rock. I don't know. It feels, like I said, very very disrespectful to be taking a poo on top of such a famous structure.
Yeah.
It's like me going to, like, I don't know. It's like taking a poo on any famous structure. It just feels weird. You know what I mean? But I was like, well, what are the options? He's like, well, I told him that. I'm like, do I really need to take a shit on top of the Great Wall? Like, is there just like a porta john somewhere around here? No, obviously there wasn't. He said, just find a spot. So first things first, I was like, well, what if I think it'd be funny if I just took a shit off the Great Wall? Like there's kind of these supports along the wall, right? And if you can imagine that, old guns and cannons would kind of go through these holes in the wall, right? And what happened is that those holes, or the arches above those holes, kind of caved in, so it kind of left this U shape, which kind of allowed for like a seat to sit and hang your ass outside the Great Wall. Two things. um, the wall kind of curved like a banana, right? And if I went kind of on the inside of the banana and hung my ass outside the inside, everybody would see my bare ass taking a dump outside off the Great Wall. Everybody like on my campsite would see my, no matter where I was on the wall, like within a half mile. It was very hazy, but it was clear enough that you could still see a pale white ass hanging off the side of the Great Wall. All right. Now, if I went on the outside of the banana, what happened to be is there were it was less structurally sound. So if I sat there, you could hear it crumbling throughout the night, and you could hear pieces falling off. I'm like, if I sit there and something happens and I fall out the back of the Great Wall and fall down a couple hundred feet to my death, I really don't want to die with my pants down and with half a turd coming out of my ass. Excuse me for being vile there. That's not a fun way to die. I really wouldn't want to die like that. It's probably one of the more humiliating ways to die. I mean, you think of where do you not want to die? It's always in the bathroom. Well, imagine if you're taking a dump on an internationally renowned monument, and then you fall to your death because you're clumsy. I didn't like that idea. I don't really think that's a good legacy to have, So I said, well, what am I going to do now? Because I'm not holding this in. I remember I said I had spicy ramen and processed sausage and a lot of alcohol. I'm not going to be able to just pinch this for a whole night and another 4-mile hike tomorrow. That's not going to happen. If it does happen, I also have to remember that how many pairs of shorts do I have? Not that many. I can't be going and wasting shorts and just taking a shit in my pants and throwing my pants over the side of the wall. I can't really be doing that because A, we're low on shorts, and B, that's pretty poor if I heard what the Chinese government would do about the insurance fraud and stuff. And I'm like, well, if I ship my drawers and I throw my stuff over the side of the wall, they're gonna have some kind of DNA test. They're gonna find a way to get that back to me and see that I just littered essentially.
A field day with that.
I'm not gonna risk that. So I said, you know what, we're gonna have to just do it on the wall. All right. And I guess it's a normal thing. And when you think of like the Asian squat, right, where you're kind of like sitting back on your haunches, on your heels, and you sit your butt down, you're just kind of like resting there. It's not like the Western squat, which is, I'm gonna use a baseball analogy, but I don't know if baseball makes sense to you guys from Ireland. But like, there's a position called a catcher who kind of squats behind the plate on the balls of his feet, right?
Yeah.
It's not like that, right? You can't take a dump when you're squatting on the balls of your feet. Right? If you look at animals, they say, I guess all the toilets throughout more rural China and like Beijing, Shanghai was pretty Western, so they had the Western toilets that we know, and I say we know and love, because when you experience, go from a porcelain throne where you can sit your cheeks down to just a hole in the ground, and you have to do like a little squat over it. You love and respect and admire whoever invented the porcelain throne that much more. I could not, for the life of me, just like sit down and not even sit down, just like go in one of those squatting positions and take a dump that way. That's not really something that I can naturally do. And I don't really know who can. I mean, I guess some people can actually do it. A lot of people can out there, but if you can go out into the woods right now, sit on your heels and take a dump, more power to you. I don't have that in my playbook. And other thing is that a lot of those bathrooms, especially in rural parts in northern China, don't have toilet paper. Period. It's not even like, it's single ply, or it's like in Europe where you wipe your butt and you throw it away. You're supposed to
go away, or
just wait for it to go away. Like it's just gonna just disappear and disintegrate. No, they're going to. I heard two things. Either I think one of them is a lie, but the one I know is the truth is you bring your own toilet paper. So wherever you go, if you go to a park, you bring your own TP, which is kind of whack. Just to think of that way, I had my backpack on me where I went, and in my backpack, I had my phone, I had my charger, I had a map, I had X pair of socks, and I had toilet paper. I guess. I guess it just became normal. But anywhere where there was essentially that hole in the ground where you put your feet there and you squat down, I'm like, two things. A, if my foot slips off like these vinyl covers, right, where your feet go, my foot is not going to slip outwardly. It's probably going to slip inwardly. And where does my foot end up? Straight in a hole filled with other people's crap. Not a fan. So what that often happens is that, if I had to crap out there, or like more rural spot, I would kind of have to do like a wall sit and really rush the process, for lack of a better word. Anyway, I'm not trying to get too vulgar on this, even though I'm already there. What happened on the wall? There was the bricks, right? I don't know what they were made of. We'll just say they were bricks made of bricks. Bricks that fallen off of parts of the wall and had collected around the wall. I stacked the bricks and made myself my own little throne, right? I put like 3 or 4 bricks, on each side, a little bit wider than my cheeks, right? I don't want to. It's not just a chair. And then on the top, I had, the bricks a little bit closer in to give myself some support, right? And I just sat there, did my business. There were some weeds covering up. I had toilet paper with me, mind you. I put the TP there, had some weeds covering up. I threw the weeds on top of it. And what I didn't do is although I thought about it, I didn't just take a brick and drop the brick on top of my crap, because I was like, well, it's probably just going to go everywhere. It's not something I really want to be doing. So I just kind of left it there. So to this day, as far as I'm aware, on one of the walls near one of the general's towers, about like 200 yards down from the general's towers, there is a little, kind of looks like a little oven, which is essentially what it is, right? A little oven where if you look into the oven, you're not going to find, pizza rolls. You're going to find my crap. That was 2 years ago. I imagine it's not there anymore, but it was there for a little bit of time. And then, I go back to the campsite, essentially, which is still on top of the Great Wall. It's not like in the middle of the woods. There's no caravans or anything like that. And my mom's like, did you use the bathroom? I'm like, yeah, actually, I made myself a throne, and I did my business. I'm gonna leave it for whoever wants it next time. I basically made a toilet for somebody else, and that's all good and dandy, yada yada. We have a quick talk, not about like my whole experience building the toilet and my shit. That'd be very odd to have an in-depth conversation with your mother about that, or anybody about that. Although I'm doing that right now. We had
to finally confess.
I know, right? Yeah. I've been holding this in for so long, and it needs to see the light of day. But we're in the tent, and you're in a tent that is very light, and it's pretty cheap, right? It's not, they don't have a very high quality tent for us to use. And what so happens to happen, right after I get back, clap of thunder, and it is like a friggin' typhoon out there. I don't know if it was a typhoon, but it was probably 4 or 5 hours of some of the hardest rain I've ever experienced, ever in my life. Thunder, lightning, the whole kit and caboodle on top of me. And I'm like, whoa, 2 things. A, we're at like the highest point in the forest right now. We're on top of a wall. We're inside, very flimsy tents. I also have to recognize that these tents are very flimsy, like I just said, and they're not waterproof. So I'm sitting there in my stuff, in my sleeping bag or whatnot, and on my side of the tent, not my mom's side, on my side of the tent, it starts to pool water around, the bottom area of the tent, right? Because we're kind of on a slope, and I go to see if on a tent there's like a water seal around the zipper. I go to see if like the water seal isn't covered. I'm like, let me just pull this over real quick. And as I'm doing that, I'm unzipping the zipper snaps. So I'm in the middle of a torrential downpour. The door on my side of the tent won't close. And I kid you not, right as that happens, the winds switch. So instead of the winds blowing on my mom's side of the tent, they're not blowing into my side of the tent with my door pretty much half off. And it's like 2 a.m. and we're leaving at 5 a.m. and I'm spending the next hour and a half until it's done. till the storm passes, just holding on to that tent door so sticks and leaves and stuff don't just smack me in the face and, leave me with like scratches all over my face the next morning, poke my eye out and whatnot. So I make it through that. I take some of my, take all the toilet paper essentially and soak up as much of the water as I can, praying to God that, my mom doesn't have to do any business the next day because she's not going to find any toilet paper. And I go to sleep for like a couple hours, wake up the next morning. I'll tell you, one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. Silver lining. So beautiful because the rain and the wind essentially blew the haze, the smog away or out of the sky for a little bit of time. Right. And I could, for the first time my entire time in Beijing, I saw the sun in China, but in Beijing, it's the first time I actually saw like the sun as you would think of the sun. Right. And there was still a little bit of haze and it was like early in the morning, right? Because they woke everybody up at like 5 in the fucking morning. And, it was just a sunrise and it was actually a sun that was rising and it wasn't just a haze that was kind of coming out of the ground. It was beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely gorgeous. And we did some more hiking and took some more fantastic photos. And one of the people we were with was a professional photographer and he sent out all these pictures. So it's fantastic. And we made it down the mountain. I'm not chafing. My ass cheeks aren't chafing because I actually wiped my butt, which I'm very thankful for. And we had this fantastic, like incredible spread of like traditional Chinese food and a lot more Chinese alcohol in like this one small cabin at the bottom of the mountain, which I don't know if they did this often. I guess like every couple of weeks they said they would take the people, the campers down there to that family and they would make a beautiful meal. And it was great. And they had a Western toilet, which was even better. But yeah, I mean, that's that. A few more weeks went by of me, chilling there and seeing things and being hot and sweaty because nothing has AC and, exploring abandoned places and whatnot. And then I get home, right? And 2 months later, what shows up at my doorstep? All of my damn clothes. But yeah, that's that. That's the story of my time in China.
That was. You don't know how many times I forgot this was a podcast. I thought I was listening to a book or something like that.
Yeah.
What a story.
That was, I've never heard such a story with that much detail and just that much amount of up and down mad things. And I don't know how you manage to just get hit after and after again and again with bad luck. Like that is awful. Like, oh.
Oh, hold on. I got one more tidbit. And to this day, I hold this over my mom's head. We were on the way home, and she didn't have first class on the way home, like she had on the way there, right? And actually, I'm gonna backtrack way to the beginning real quick. When we got to the hotel, and it still bugs me to the day and annoys me. She was so spiteful not spiteful, but she was so I don't know. She was being an asshole, to say the least. I can say that, and she can be okay with that because I've said it to her before about the same incident. Is we get to the hotel, I'm bummed because I'm still kind of sick at the time, and I am not having. I say I'm not having it, but I'm also not having any clothes. I'm not having any of my stuff, and we're in the hotel. I'm like, well, okay, I gotta go to the mall tomorrow and get some clothes because it's only for a couple days, and I'm starving, and it's like a 12-hour jet lag or a 12-hour time difference, and I'm miserable. I'm awful. And yeah, and my mom was like, well, if it makes you feel any better, I have, in first class, they gave me some socks and some PJs. So, if you want some socks, you can have those socks. I wore them already, but you can have them if you need socks. I mean, they can be I wore them. But, they gave me some stuff in first class. And then she's like, oh, my gosh, also in first class, they gave me, there was like this whole spread and they were walking it down the aisle. And it was like desserts and food and stuff. And they would just give it to you. And it was like free. So I didn't have to pay for it. It was just included in my ticket. And I got to extend my legs back and put my feet up. And I had slippers and everything. And I'm like, Mom, I sat between two large individuals. One of them was coughing, and my dinner consisted of cold, chewy chicken, as well as like the breath of the person next to me. That was my dinner, right? You see what I'm dealing. I also don't have clothes right now, Mom. I've worn these clothes on my body for like 3 days. I don't need to hear about your friggin' dessert buffet that you had going on in first class. I don't need to hear about your, how relaxing and soothing it was. It was like she was portraying me and my fellow economy class people as inferior to her. But then on the return trip, which I think we had a layover somewhere else too, she, like I said, wasn't going first class. We're sitting in the line, and she was just complaining like, "Oh my god, it's 17 hours is gonna suck." And I'm like, "I know, I was there. Don't come at me saying it's not gonna be a good time because you made me experience that on the way here." I'm not saying that like we don't fly first class often. Her business just gave it to her, but she didn't get it on the way back for whatever reason. And I guess she got an update on her phone that there was a first class seat open, and she was kind of down on the pecking order in terms of who got the opportunity next to move up. And she didn't even say anything to me. She just walked away, goes to the front desk, and just starts asking if she can have the seat. I'm like, "Hello, hi. I can't have access to that. I still don't have clothes on my back. Yeah, you're not. You are, Mom. You're gonna suffer with me through this because you deserve to suffer right now. Right now in this moment, I know you're not going first class." And she's just like, "I am going first class. Because fuck you, Everett. I'm going first class. I have the opportunity." And I'm like, "Mom, you're not. I promise you, in the world is not going to let you do that. The world is going to see how miserable it's been, all the bad luck I've had, and they're going to give me one little bit of karma, right? One little bit right now, and they're going to tell you that you have first class, which they did, and they're going to take it away." And that's exactly what they did. They took it away from her. And maybe it's I like to be the guy that's like preying on somebody else's downfall and saying like, I was hoping that she wouldn't get first class, but on my life, I was hoping she wouldn't get first class. I needed her to feel how bad it was to do 17 hours economy class, like the worst of the worst. Like no leg room, 4 people in an aisle. I needed her to feel that, and she did. So that was a little bit more silver lining for me. And we came home.
Tweet on your end.
Yeah, it was the smallest of small victories. It was not like anything big at all. Basically, I deemed it a victory, but what actually happened was that somebody else got a good opportunity and then got shafted, and I was happy about it because I was already getting shafted. So I mean, I guess I was preying on somebody else's downfall. But that's besides the point. We get into America, go to a place outside of New York City called Newark. I know it's weird. It's New York and then Newark are two big cities, 2 big airports in that area. Go to Newark, and for whatever reason, I think it was more torrential rain. Our flight gets canceled to the next day, and we can't just stay in the airport because the airport's not ginormous. So what happens is we have to rent a Airbnb, and when you get in at like 1 a.m. and you need an Airbnb immediately, how many Airbnbs are really available in like a suburban area? Not that many. But luckily, her company was paying for it. So I kid you not, we rented for a night a mansion, ginormous. The thing was, I guess, on the market for like 3 years and it wasn't selling. But I mean, you could see like the realtor papers and stuff inside the house. I don't know. It was millions and millions and millions of dollars. And it was very old. It was like a mansion that was built in like the 60s because everything was ducked out and things from the 60s and the 70s, and other than the kitchen, nothing was really updated. It was all just old, but it was freaking humongous and
So
covered in
you're telling me you went from 3 pairs of pants to a bachelor in New York?
No, it is. It's what it is. It started from the bottom. Now we're here, essentially, right? But when we stayed in there and everything was sticky, it's for weird reasons. I spent the whole night. I mean, I was jet lagged out of my mind. But it was such a big place. I just spent the whole night just like exploring it and looking around and seeing what the hell was up with it. And I opened up this one drawer, this one kind of cabinet. in the room I was staying in, and it was like, if you ever see those movies or things, or have you ever seen a movie or thing, or just any sort of entertainment where a character opens up a chest, like a drawer or something, and it starts starts glowing,
Oh,
and like their eyes get really wide, and it's like, and things start getting really
Case in Pulp Fiction.
exactly. And it wasn't full of money, no, but it was like a time capsule, because I open it up and I see, like, board games that are like the first edition board games from like the 50s and the 60s of like Monopoly and Trouble and all those classic Hasbro games. And I mean, they're used obviously, but it is such a retro feel. And I see this guy in America. You guys do World Cup sticker books, right? That's like a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Right, that's like a thing over there.
Exactly.
That's not really a thing over here. But we have trading cards, right? Especially baseball cards. And baseball cards got really big in the 80s, right? And once they got really big in the 80s, they became really pretty much invaluable. It was like the paper that was printed on was cost more than the card itself, because there were so many of them that were printed. But anytime before like 1981, cards are more valuable because there's less of them, right? That makes sense. Now, this individual, whoever's room I was staying in, I guess it seemed like they just like moved out really fast, because in some of the other drawers, I found like birthday cards for like a bat mitzvah and like a bat mitzvah cards, and like thank you cards and stuff that were all dated from a few years ago, but they were still there. It's like the people just moved out and moved everything and just like left all the crap in the drawers. Right? I understand why the fridge had some. I still think about. I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe in spirits and that kind of stuff. But if you told me that I lived like one time in my life, right? Somebody came to me and said, Everett, one time in your life, you lived, or you were in a house that was haunted. I would know exactly which one it was, because you're right. It would have been that one. No other place I've been gave me the same kind of vibe. But the kitchen had food in it. You never know if it's just while I was there's a bat mitzvah going on, and the kid was getting, what do you call it, raised in the air on a chair, and that was going on, and I was just running into him over and over. I just kept hitting them, and they're out to get me. But there's food in the kitchen because it's an Airbnb and people just bought food and left it there. But there's no clothes, there's no shoes, there's no like belongings. There was some furniture, but there was like the car. There was those just things that you would think if you moved out you would get rid of, you would throw away, because they have identifying things on them, like your name, like your what addresses they came from, like your family, but they didn't throw them away. So I go back upstairs into the room I was in, and sorry, side note, I keep jumping around, but spiral staircases there was one main spiral staircase, but there was like 2 or 3 auxiliary spiral staircases that weren't big. They were like little like augers kind of drilling through the house, probably about 2 feet, 2 feet to a meter wide. And they would go from like the master walk-in closet down to like the mud room on the first floor. And they went from like the attic down to the floor below it. And there's a couple of them. Like they were just random staircases throughout the house. It was weird. It was very, very odd. It was cool. It was sick, but it was weird. Anyway, I'm in this room, and I look, and excuse me, all of the baseball cards, the trading cards, are numbered, right? It's a set. It's a collection that's released every year, from like 1 all the way up to like 572 or something like that, for how many players that they print. And I guess it's just a number, right? But it doesn't really, to me, it doesn't mean anything, because it's just what number card it is. But I guess people want to collect every single card from that year, no matter how important the player is. And this guy had, I don't remember the exact years. I say guy, but it could have been a girl, but who knows? 1970, like 1974. It was like 3 or 4 years that he had every single card collected. It was like at least a few thousand cards total. He had every single one. He had duplicates of many of them. And I was like, holy crap. And I went online. I was just looking up how much does this stuff cost? Like, how much can how much are these worth? And some of them are worth hundreds, like a couple $1,000s. Some of them are worth like a couple bucks, but you could look up, say, okay, 1971, the brand is Topps. What cards are valuable from this pack? And it kind of said, this card was a misprint, and this card was very rare, and this card was a rookie card of a famous player. I went by and I was looking, I was like, okay, it'd be crazy if he had this card. And I go through it and he has like 5 of them. Like I'm holding in my hand like 5 cards that are each worth like $3,000 each. This is stupid. This is crazy. It's like I'm in like a kid's book. It was a book I read by an author. I remember I was a kid, I don't remember who wrote it or what the book was called. But they were digging. These kids were digging through something. They found this Honus Wagner card, right? And Honus Wagner is a baseball player from like 1900s, 1910s, and that card, even like it's a real card, is worth many millions of dollars. It is the most expensive trading card in the world. And I guess in this book, the story is that they found another part of this card, and it was called Swindle. Swindle's the book. And, this one scammy pawn shop owner swindles them into giving up that card for like $50, right? And then that guy tries to go sell it for millions of dollars, and these kids create a plan to go steal it back and yada, yada, yada. But I kind of felt like that, right? Where I found all these treasures and stuff. And I love sports. I love these cards and stuff. And I collected cards when I was a kid, but not to that extent. And he had like signed baseballs from there's a guy named Mickey Mantle, and he's one of the most famous baseball players in the history of the sport. And like these things, just these sports memorabilia are worth probably like $100,000. And it's Airbnb, and it's been Airbnb for like 2 or 3 years now. They're just sitting here, like nobody understands how expensive these things are. And I'm not going to just take this stuff, because I know my back of my mind is like, if they ever come back for this and this old guy's like, oh my gosh, my Mickey Mantle baseball, I need to go back and find it. I left it there. I left it at the old house, and he goes back and it's not there. He's gonna be so bummed about it. And I would hate to be the person that takes that from him, because if I put myself in his shoes, right? If I was in the same situation and I had something that I really liked and I was really valuable and I wanted to keep, and I forgot about it and found out it was stolen, I'd be the end of the world for me. So I couldn't do that. But there were cards that he had multiple of, like many duplicates, very expensive cards. And I had like a deck of cards, and I got about 52 cards, right? That were duplicates and that I knew he had multiple of. And even if they were valuable, I put them in there, and I kept them. And I have them in my apartment out in school. And it's like a time capsule, right? It kind of reminds me of the whole China trip as a whole. And I got those cards appraised by a local baseball card guy in my hometown. And some of them, he said, these are pretty bad quality cards in terms of like the edges and the print. They're only worth they're only worth a couple $100. But the fact that I had like 52 of them, he's like, you could sell them now, or you could hold on to them for longer and they'd be even more valuable. So I just have like this 52 cards or so of baseball cards. That's probably now only worth about $5,000. I say only, but over time, say in like 50 years, it could be worth $10,000, right? $20,000. And, it's cool. That's all I'm going to say. I think it's really cool that I came across that kind of stuff. And it was a big silver lining to the entire trip.
Yeah, you luckily turned around once you left China. Like it
maybe
seems that things completely did a U-turn as you came back. Not completely, but you know what I mean. Like things started getting better, and you got some lucky stuff. Yeah,
my luck's a little bit better in the States than it is on foreign soil. We could do this for another time. I have another. It doesn't involve a dump on a very famous monument. I promise you it doesn't. But it does involve some other crazy stuff that happened in Greece the year before. So we can do that another time. We can do that, if you guys want some other time. That's another crazy story about just some stupid things.
You've got some collection, haven't you?
There's probably about 2. It's probably Greece and China and like one more, and those are like the only stories I can give like really long things about. But yeah,
Still good.
that's the end of
Yeah,
the tale.
one question I want to ask you overall, the big question is, did you enjoy your China trip? Like, because I know there was ups and downs, and I know it must have been great going there, but then there was bits that turned you off. So I'm wondering, what was the whole at the end of it? What was your rating there?
Immediately after, a 4. Immediately, hindsight, looking back on it, like 2 years and a month removed from it, that was like a 9 out of 10, 8, 9, 10 out of trim. 8 to 9 out of 10. 8.5 out of 10 trip. That's what I'm trying to say. Other than the fact that I lost my clothes, which still sucks, and then there's no good that came from that. I mean, I bought cheap clothes, and I can't. One of them actually, I have a shirt from H&M that I don't know why I haven't got rid of it yet. It still has like the tag on it, like to prevent you from stealing it.
Big question I wanted to ask you was, how did you last on 2 pairs of pants? How did you do it?
Washer, dryer. I know it's a crazy idea that you would wash your clothes. It really is. But it would happen is like I would wear it, and then you do the age old sniff test the next day, and if it smells wearable, you wear it again, and then you would give it a couple days off, switch to the other pair of shorts for 2 days, 1 or 2 days,
An
and
ancient technique, is it?
it is.
Wash and then wear again down.
It's not something that many people. It's a pro tip. It's not something that a lot of people know.
Yeah.
But
Bear Grylls level of survivability, is it?
Yeah, I think I exaggerated when I said I had 2 pairs of pants. I actually had 3 pairs of pants.
Okay.
Crazy stuff. I know it was. I still have them. To be honest, I still have them. One of them is like worn down and is a pair of work shorts now, but 2 of the other pairs of shorts I actually wear. Those no should be in the frame. Those shoes really made it through everything. They made it through the entire trip, up and down. Well, I mean, they were not meant for hiking. I'll tell you, I had like hiking shoes because I knew we were gonna go camping. But those shoes,
in your bag?
Yeah, those Reebok Classics, $20 at a sports shop in my hometown. They lasted the entire trip. To this day, I still have them. They're just a pair of beat up shoes. But if anything's gonna be in a frame, it should be those things.
Mm-hmm. But just about your story and all that shit was fantastic to listen to. Like, no joke, that was just
that's a great pun, right?
Yeah, I know. Like, it's just the whole story and it was just the way you even told it. It was just like, as I said before, I forgot I was on a podcast. I thought I was listening to an Audible original or something. Like, it's
maybe I should turn it into a book, right?
Yeah, the Shanghai story.
It was good. The shit wasn't good. It was awkward and uncomfortable. But the trip as a whole, in hindsight, I will say, I'll reiterate again, it was a good trip, and it's very, as you can tell, it was memorable. And I've told this story a few times, so maybe that helps with the fact that it comes off very easily. But I love telling the story because how many other people can say they built a throne on the Great Wall of China, took a dump in it, and still there today.
To hear it because I thought it was just I thought the story was just gonna be we went to the Great Wall of China, we went camping, and then you did your business. I that's all I thought it was gonna be, but then you got into this whole in-depth like traveling trip, and it made it so much better.
Oh, I mean, it could have just been the dump part, but then it wouldn't. You wouldn't understand how
it'd take away the build-up,
how unlucky it really was. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Well, that's my story, and I thank you so much for giving me the platform to tell it.
Happy to hear it. It's fantastic stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I know. Caden had to hop out for a second.
Yeah.
Not a problem.
Yeah, it's great. You got a few words in anyway. So, yeah, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you very much.
Of course. Okay.
Absolutely.
Well, that wraps up today's episode with Ziggy. Ziggy, I don't know. Sorry if I pronounced that wrong.
Zigginfus, whatever you can call me. You can call me whatever the heck you want. I'll probably respond. Simple as that. Real quick, if you don't mind, I'd love you for anybody listening to check out. I'm just gonna plug my Apple picking one more time. We got some great stuff going on there. Great conversations about some really, really important stuff, and for everybody that listens to it, that's just one more voice or one more ear that somebody else's voice is being heard. And in a time like this, that means the world.
Definitely, yeah, and cherry picking as well as your sports podcast as well. If people aren't that like inclined to listen to important stuff, maybe they want something lighthearted. I've listened to a bit of cherry picking, and yeah, that's very good as well if you're into sports and stuff like that. So yeah,
Thank you much. Thanks again, Keen, for having me on.
I'll link your stuff in the description. Is there anything else you'd like to plug? Maybe some social media, Twitter, or anything like that?
I mean, you can follow our company Instagram and Twitter at _cherry picking, and on Twitter only for apple picking _apple picking. They're both pretty intertwined, but we got a lot of good stuff going on there. In terms of audio snippets and in terms of just some good content to support our podcast. Just as Block of the Week has some good content on their Instagram to support their show.
Definitely, yeah. And I'll definitely link it all in the bio, so you don't have to go. You don't have to remember it all. But yeah. Okay. Bye bye.